Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Blue Bounty Hunter channel. So as great as our childhoods were, what's a good children's movie without some borderline trauma, am I right? So from ancient monks that had their brains stored in jars, to the bodies of Luke's relatives burned to a medium rare, today I'll be going over the most terrifying scenes from these films that would always make me anxious as a younger kid. And don't worry, just for the sake of the audience, I'll make sure not to include any jump scares in this video.
This is outrageous. It's unfair.
Starting off with episode 1, The Phantom Menace. From this movie, I've picked the character of Tae Hao to focus on, who appears in the two scenes of the movie in the Lucre Hulk Bridge in the navigation station. And this female Nemodian has a vocabulator and data goggles, which allows her to have direct communication throughout the vessels. She also was the pilot of the Sak-Ak and the Vuitton Pala. I just found it unsettling to see this character that looks like they're completely plugged into the ship, and apparently the voices you hear coming from their direction in the movie are not actually her real voice, but instead the words of the P-59, a destroyer droid, and then later another Nemodian crew member. This makes it seem like she isn't really her own person and is more of a mindless cyborg that serves the ship's commands, and she is in fact that, a cyborg, due to the extensions on her face. I'm very curious if the backstory of her appearance will be expanded upon further in Legends, because right now the details are vague to say the least. Tae appears in the opening scene when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan attempt to make negotiations, and also during the space battle of Naboo where she is fatefully vaporized. So there isn't really too much for the Phantom Menace, especially with just this character, but they're always someone that in the movie I saw as a kid, and I don't know, they always gave off an odd vibe with their voice and then their appearance and everything, so I thought I'd mention them here at first. Next up for Zam Wesell in episode 2, we have the moment during the speeder chase when she looks up to reveal her Claudite form for the first time. And really, I just remember always, first of all, loving this scene as a kid. I mean, it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, still to this day, but I just always thought it was a really great action sequence. But I also remember after the first few times I watched it, every time I would be really anxious and like looking forward to, but not in a good way, in a very bad way, this moment, because it always just really creeped me out as a kid, just seeing her face morph into this hideous creature that's like, you know, no offense to Claudites or anything, but it's very scary to look at, and it was just this brief moment that just pops up, and it always scared me as a kid, because later on it's kind of like a slow transition, but here it's just a quick little thing here that, I don't know, it always creeped me out for a long time. And this on top of the beautiful yet creepy sound design of her speeder makes this an even more unnerving moment in this action beat. In case you don't know, Claudites are shape-shifting aliens that were reptilian and green-skinned in appearance that used chromatophores to morph into any humanoid that didn't change their body mass excessively, and there is also one in the Clone Wars during that one arc with Cad Bane as well as the holocron heist and all that good stuff. This was later revealed again in this scene after Obi-Wan dismembers Zam and Jango shoots her with a poison dart, which makes her head expand to its normal state before she dies. I mean, Jango really said, time to aim at the one person sitting here that is on my side. He was probably mad that she hadn't been using that Kaminoan skincare routine. Yeesh. So for Revenge of the Sith, I'll be avoiding the obvious picks like Vader burning or Grievous exploding into the flames, and instead we have to look into the deleted scenes, or more specifically, unused previs for this part of the video.
You are a bold one.
Because apparently in a rough animation for this Order 66 sequence, among other crazy things happening, we get an on-screen death for Barriss Offee. And oh, is it a brutal one. Obviously this is retconned in canon by Barriss turning to the dark side in the Clone Wars after bombing the Jedi Temple, but this still would have been a very cool fate to see. And basically in this animation, Barriss is seen fighting on where she force pulls a battle droid up to choke before the 4 front-mounted cannons of the AT-TE behind her aim and tear through the young Jedi. After she falls over, presumably dead, the clones decide to step on her dead body just for good measure, which in the original scene is the cause of Yoda's shock shocked state on Kashyyyk. So that's a very brutal death for sure. According to Ian McDiarmid, the Order 66 scene was originally going to be much more brutal, and it's things like this that were cut that show you how. So I don't want it to be like episode 3 is the one movie I can't find something creepy from because it's so tame. I mean, it's literally the only PG-13 Star Wars movie of the George Lucas ones, but I don't know, I just couldn't really think anything that came to my mind that was creepy. Sure, brutal and definitely traumatizing in some senses, but nothing that was just outright creepy. Next up, we have episode 4, A New Hope, and for this classic, I've chosen the scene where Luke hurries home in his land speeder to find Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru fanned out across the ground of their scorched homestead, with most of their flesh stripped from their bones. So I mean, yeah, this is just so brutal and kind of out of pocket. I mean, the cool thing about these older movies is they could get away with more stuff because until Temple of Doom came out, the PG-13 rating didn't even exist, so they could get away with more stuff in a PG movie, but it is still kind of jarring because, like, yes, people always talk about Anakin burning in Revenge of the Sith, which is obviously probably the most brutal thing in any of these movies, but still, this is a very random, just gruesome death shown here. It's not really shown, but we see the aftermath of it, and yeah, I don't know, it's very out of pocket and random, and I don't know if it really creeped me out as a kid, but it definitely was scary, for sure. For backstory, apparently the stormtroopers on Tatooine traced the droids to the area, and then interrogated the couple before killing them, presumably by blaster, and then leaving them there before burning the house, which made the two catch fire. A popular fan theory suggests Boba Fett was the one to kill them, both using a flamethrower, but this is not the case. Also, in case you wanted to know, Beru is the one lying face down, while Owen is splayed out, at least from what I can find, but I'm not positive that that is true. I'd also have to give an honorable mention to the sand crawler scene, where R2-D2 is in the dark with many droids, including an RA-7 protocol droid surrounding him, and while the other moment is certainly more significant, I found this one as a kid to be very, very creepy. For The Empire Strikes Back, my pick goes to the moment in the space slug cave/mouth aboard the Falcon where Princess Leia looks out the window for a brief moment in an otherwise quiet scene to be shocked by a disgusting Mynock suctioning to the window. Later, the group would fight off these creatures while outside wearing breathing masks. Mynocks are parasitic creatures from Ord Mynock that can survive in space areas like asteroids or even inside of exogorths by using sustenance from passing or wrecked starships such as the Millennium Falcon. And if they had too much of this energy, they could become spark drunk. They would also reproduce by splitting in two and then growing new organisms from each side. Kind of like mitosis, except, oh wait, I don't even really pay attention in science class, so I don't know, it's something with cells, I believe, but yeah, I don't know. Also, foods could be made from these creatures that were popular amongst Twi'leks, and the expression "worse-sitting Mynocks" also found its roots here, of course. So this is just a kind of jump scare type scene that definitely was a bit shocking as a kid, and whenever it comes up, you're always like, okay, I know what's gonna happen, but it's still gonna scare me. And the only honorable mentions I could give for this one is the cave vision with Luke and Vader, and also Han Solo getting tortured, which was definitely a little bit much for a PG movie yet again. Lastly, in Return of the Jedi, I have the moment where the droids C-3PO and R2-D2 enter the gate of Jabba's palace, and as R2 is in a hurry to move forward, brave as always, 3PO is waddling behind in the background before being startled by a Bomar monk walking past. Honestly, I can't tell if I think of this as more creepy or just flat out cool when we take a look at the lore backing these guys up. This group of monks served under a religious order that allowed the enlightened individuals to place their brains in nutrient-filled jars in spider-like droids, as they believed in removing themselves from all physical sensations to make their minds more powerful. The older members had 4 legs, while the youngest were equipped with 6. Also, one of their many monasteries around the galaxy that included regeneration cells was that of Jabba's, which was taken over by the crime lord, who allowed them to stay since he liked the gruesome appearance of them. A cousin of Jabba, known as Kraka, had his brain added to the collection of bottled brains underneath the building in the catacombs after he tried to steal a brain with secrets within it. And I'll be finishing off the video by talking about a few different things that I thought were very creepy from the Clone Wars. Firstly, the entire Geonosis arc from Season 2 is a great collection of episodes to look at. While the first half starts off very normal and action-packed as is the norm with the Clone Wars, the last 2 episodes, specifically Brain Invaders, turn in a much more horror-oriented direction, with the first being creepy and claustrophobic for the use of zombie Geonosians deep underground in the catacombs of the bug-ridden planet. It really isn't fun to see Obi-Wan in the 212th dragged into this grave, which culminates with the sight of the Queen Geonosian known as Karina the Great, who is massive and gross in her own way. The 4th episode is even worse as the arc strays progressively further from its roots of the Second Battle of Geonosis. In this one, all of the clones aboard Ahsoka's ship, as well as the Padawan Barriss Offee, are controlled by worms, turning it into a zombie survival story. This makes for a thrilling episode, and also we get to see my boy Kit Fisto at the end, which is great because he's my favorite Jedi, and if you disagree, then well, that's the wrong opinion. These brain worms were able to control bodies and even corpses while being controlled by Geonosian queens of the past, but were highly vulnerable to extreme cold, which is how they were dealt with in the Clone Wars.
Good job.
I won't mention Mortis too much, as I already talked about it in my Liminal Spaces video from 2 days ago, but just know that it had some very uncanny and even creepy vibes surrounding the whole thing from start to finish. But anyway, that's it for this video. You can subscribe if you want to. In case you don't know already, I'm probably not doing a face reveal at 1K subs, but we will see. I did a poll though, and the results came out as you guys preferring 10K. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but we'll see what happens. I upload every Friday and sometimes on Sunday too at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, I post shorts on Saturday, but yeah, see ya.